District 5, Lynn Longmire.
District 6, Jonathan Welch.
District 7, Ted Eggenbar.
District 8, Niall Harding.
District 9, Gidget Oxner.
District 10, Brian Fuzzy-Connell.
And we don't know if she's on. Not on, okay. Perfect. So the first thing is I'd like to move to disclosure of interest. So the presentation under item 2.1, we're actually going to be doing that at 11 o'clock. So we're just going to skip through that. So does anyone have any disclosure of interest? Okay, seeing none. All right. Approval of the order of the day.
I'd like to add 2 items.
Okay.
Under 7.1, new business, uranium mining, Annapolis County.
Okay. And did you say another one?
And second one is 7.2 under new business, and that is a recommendation from Fire Services meeting last night.
Perfect. So can I have a, oh,
No, I was just moving on with you.
okay,
Sorry.
all right. Do I have a seconder? Sorry. Lynn Longmire, please. Lynn Longmire. All right. All those in favor say yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Not in favor say no. Perfect. All right. Now on to the approval of the minutes. So has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Is there any errors and omissions? Hearing none. And if they're adopted as presented. All right. So let's move on to the first section 6.1, Annapolis County Anti-Poverty and Inclusion Initiative. So who would, we have a volunteer? Councilor Cranston?
I move that council of the municipality of the county of Annapolis support the proposed 3 commitments of the Anti-Poverty and Inclusion Initiative.
Seconder. Councilor Harding. So before we move into questions or discussion, I'm going to ask the staff member to speak on the topic. I believe she has a bit of a PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you, Deputy Warden Enslow. I just want to take a minute before we dive into the report to talk about the Annapolis County Poverty Survey. So between November 2024 and February 2025, 229 people took part in the Annapolis County Poverty Survey, and it really helped us understand what poverty looks like in our communities. So regarding financial hardships, 85% of the respondents reported that they or someone close to them faced financial difficulties in the past year. Poverty was often described as significant but invisible, with many suffering in silence. When residents describe poverty in the community, they often use terms like shameful, hidden, and moderate to express their experiences with poverty. Even with full-time jobs, many people struggle to meet their basic needs like paying for rent, heating, food, and electricity. As you know, there's a lot of stigma associated with poverty as well as pride, so this really stops people from asking for help, making things worse. According to the survey responses, residents identified several urgent issues, with housing costs being the primary concern. This was mentioned 181 times, which was 40% of all the responses. Rent was also mentioned as often being too expensive, or the location was too far from essential services. Another significant concern is the lack of high-paying job opportunities, as many people find that available jobs do not offer wages sufficient to cover rising living costs. People also raise concerns about access to healthcare, transportation, education and training, high property taxes, and food insecurity. So keeping these findings in mind, I just want to now go towards the current report and share the next steps in addressing poverty in Annapolis County. This initiative is part of the county's strategic plan for 2023-2027 under the strategic priority investing in our people, with the aim to establish an anti-poverty and inclusion working group and develop a community action plan. So the report outlines a three-phase plan for community-led action. To guide this process, it's highly recommended to actively listen to individuals with lived experience of poverty. Also, we want to build community-wide understanding and raise awareness of the root causes of poverty, and we want to work together to reduce barriers that hinder access to essential services and supports. So essentially, the goal is to co-create a 10-year community action plan led by a new working group made up of people with lived experience, community groups, health and social service partners, and local businesses. The work will happen in three phases. First, with forming the working group along with the lived experience circle to share insights, and then we'll also hold community sessions to gather more information. And with all this information, we'll use all this input to write a plan with goals and actions and explore partnership opportunities with organizations. We'll share a draft plan with council. We'll tweak it, finalize it, and then we'll implement the community action plan. So there you have it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So does anyone have any questions or comments or discussion?
I have a draft terms of reference, but it'd be about 12 to 15 people, hopefully with lived experience, people with work experience, service organizations, community residents, staff.
I just like to echo bureaucracy. If we take on projects of this, I do not wish to see it get lost in bureaucracy and come up with positive results.
And Councilor Hare, I'm just the facilitator and the
Yeah.
convener and just the gatherer of
Yep.
information and the coordinator, so.
Does anyone else have any questions for discussion? Councilor Aguilar?
Yeah, I completely concur with my colleagues here as well, and I think it's a very worthwhile project. I just want to emphasize the fact that taking on a project like this, I hope it's not like previous ones where it's kind of a paintbrush sort of approach, and I think that consistent funding from council is key to seeing this long-term. And so that's our job, is to make sure that that continues to happen. So I think the initiative is excellent, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lomer, you still want to speak?
Yes, please. Thank you. I guess I would like to just simply say, we have a powerful county with citizens in it that have seen and felt the impact of poverty for some time now and have stepped up and formed wonderful gatherings of people who are putting together these pantries and things. So I just want to say huge shout out to our county for recognizing and playing a role significantly in addressing concerns. Thanks.
Anyone else? All right, I'd like to call for the vote now. Does anyone need the motion read again? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed say no. Thank you. All right, Councilor Aguilar, would you like the next one?
Thank you.
Which is two separate motions under 6.2 for the Bridgetown Trust. Page 45.
I'll get there in a second. A lot of pages here. Thank you. I move that the municipal council authorize payment from the Bridgetown School Trust to the Bridgetown Regional Community School in the amount of $8,893, and that municipal council authorize payment of up to $2,800 for scholarships recipients upon confirmation of the attendance at a post-secondary institution.
So we actually need that two separate motions.
Okay.
So the first one, you want to just read it one more time?
I will. Thank you very much. I move that the municipal council authorize payment from the Bridgetown School Trust to the Bridgetown Regional Community School in the amount of $8,893.
Seconded. Councilor Brink. Discussion. Oh, yes, sorry.
Because many on council haven't seen this.
That's
before,
right,
so-
yes, sorry.
Sure. So these are trusts that we've inherited from the Bridgetown Resolution. So essentially they're self-funded. We have a certain amount that's allocated every year towards graduating high school students, or depending as per the distribution list that you have on your paper. So the first one is awards that are given to all the different courses for students. So you can find it like biology 12, calculus 12, and these are chosen by the school. We don't really pick the students.
Now, anyone have discussion or answer about that? Perfect. All right, I'd like to call for the vote. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no.
Thank you. I move that municipal council authorize payment of up to $2,800 for scholarships recipients upon confirmation of attendance at a post-secondary institution.
We have a second. Councilor Harris. Do you want more explanation from the staff member, or we're good? Okay. Any questions or discussion? Perfect. All right. Call for the vote. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Not in favor, no. Perfect. Thank you very much. All right, so let's move to 6.3 on page 48. Do I have a volunteer? Councilor Walsh.
I move to recommend the municipal council give first reading to approve bylaw 7 dogs.
Perfect. Councilor Meyer.
It's got 7 dogs.
Sorry. Ms. Campbell, do you mind giving a bit of an explanation to it?
I never read it that way.
Right.
I never read it that way the first time either.
As an overview, the discussion section gives a pretty good overview of what the changes are. The full package provides a copy of the specific changes, removing the definitions that are redundant with the Municipal Government Act, updating the locations where dog tags can be purchased, and the two significant changes are incorporating our confidentiality practices into the policy itself so that the public has a better understanding of how we try to provide respect to all of the parties involved in these circumstances. So this is a practice we've been following, but by putting it in the bylaw itself, hopefully people are going to have a greater understanding of why we don't disclose information of the accused or the complainant, because we try and maintain a respectful process for this. And we also expanded the explanation of excessive barking because there are a lot of different definitions of excessive barking, so we're trying to set a common standard that everyone will understand.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Campbell. All right, any questions or discussion? Councilor Long on that?
Thank you. So just a couple of things here. I really appreciate what you've shared with the confidential aspect. That is, it's troubling when you hear people around chatting about someone's animal and that it's been reported and things like that. And I had been part of something similar, so this is wonderful to hear. I like that word. The veterinarian services.
What page?
Oh, sorry. This is just general, but 58, I guess, of 112. So at the top it said on the advice of veterinarian. So I'm just wondering, do we have any particular veterinarians that supply support for our animals if they were in the pound, or, yes?
So actually, all of the vets that are located within the county of Annapolis at different times and in different circumstances provide support, whether that be for our TNR program for dogs that are in the pound. So there's not an exclusivity with just one vet, depending on the circumstances, either the closest proximity to a dog, if it's being picked up and it's in condition that it has to go to the vet right away, it certainly would be the closest and the one that could see it the fastest.
Thank you. Well, we're very fortunate to have veterinarians around us that are doing this with us, so I thank them for that. The only other part was, and this is out of curiosity, I think of repeat animals that may come into a pound situation and several days, waiting for the person to pick them up. I'm just curious if ever there were repeats, would it be beneficial for the county to put a tag on that animal so that we don't have
Yes,
to...
we do.
Do we? Okay, that's great. I didn't see anything in there and I wasn't sure if it was a practice.
It is our practice. The exception, sort of, to that is that so many people are moving to microchipping.
Right.
So there have been circumstances where we've allowed people to not purchase a tag if they can prove that they have microchipping instead.
Wonderful. Very proactive, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Councilor Wong?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate staff's work on updating this bylaw. I'm just wondering if we have the staff in place to enforce this, especially in the rural areas.
That's a good answer.
There are many different ways that we could answer that. And because we are changing a lot of our processes, I think we have to reserve our opinion slightly.
Okay.
For the practices that we have had in the past, I think we have sufficient staff, but we always want to grow our practices and to become more proactive, to become quicker at responding, to looking at resolving the roots of the issue rather than just the surface issue, will likely in the short term require more staff.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Agenberg?
Thank you. Well, my input isn't as profound. It's more grammatical and consistency. So I see throughout and I'm talking about page 58 of 112, I see throughout this whole process, in the process of cleaning it up, the word destroyed is being replaced by euthanized. And if you look at 10.46, at the very bottom, I missed one.
Oh, I will fix that.
Okay? Just to be consistent. I don't think I was that good at grammar, but seems to be those things kind of attract me.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone else for discussion? Okay. All those in favor say yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Opposed, say no. We're going to move to 6.4. Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Appointment of Development Officer. Councilor Wellmeyer, would you like to?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. I move that Municipal Council appoint Ning Ling as Development Officer for the municipality of the County of Annapolis to administer the municipality's land use bylaws and subdivision bylaw.
Thank you. Have a seconder. Councilor Oxner. Ms. Betts?
Yep, absolutely. So it's our practice that when we hire a planner, that we appoint them as development officer as well. Nate comes to us with some training in development control from his past employment.
Perfect. Anything else? No. Perfect. Any questions? Councilor Hare?
Just to confirm, this isn't a new position?
No.
No.
Any other questions? Perfect. All those in favor says yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Perfect. Thank you. All right, page 63, 6.5, Animal Control Agreement. Councilor Harrison Salzman.
I move that municipal council authorize an agreement for the county of Annapolis to provide dog control services to the town of Annapolis Royal starting July 1st, 2025 and ending March 31st, 2030.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councilor Crampton. Ms. Campbell again.
Don't have a lot to say about the agreements, except that I think they're a bit clearer than the previous ones. We're providing the same level of service that we have provided in the past, and these are an extension of services to the towns of long standing.
Perfect. Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Going once. Councilor Oxner.
The reclaim policy. The towns have, Annapolis, Royal, and Middleton have different reclaim policies.
Slightly different wording, yes.
So
And that,
should it not be consistent? I would like to see it the same.
okay.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you brought that point up. So what we have done is, we've redone our dog bylaw, and we have shared it with the towns, and we have provided the opportunity for them to take those and massage them for their own, adapt them, change the context as necessary. for their own use, which would bring us much closer together, all three units, and would be much less confusing to residents to have bylaws that are almost identical. So even though we had to change the wording slightly for the two towns because their bylaws are currently different, my understanding is that both towns in the short term, probably over the next 2 months, are going to adopt our bylaw.
That would be good, yes.
Thank you. Councilor Longworth, did you have?
Yes, yes, halfway. So just under the discussion on 64 of 112, the previous agreement was, at the top, the previous agreement was for a period of 2 years. There's a consensus that it could be up to a 5-year agreement. So do we know, is that going to be a 2-year or a 5-year, or is that any?
They are recommending to their councils and approval for 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion, question? Seeing none. All those in favor says yes.
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 Opposed, no? Thank you. All right, moving. Oh, sorry. Can I have a volunteer for the second motion? Thank you.
I move that municipal council authorize an agreement for the county of Annapolis to provide animal control services to the town of Middleton starting July 1st, 2025 and ending March 31st, 2030.
Seconder, Councilor Longmire. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor says yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Okay, moving on to page 71, 6.6, budget approval, cybersecurity insurance. Do I have volunteers? Councilor Aguilar?
Oh, sorry.
Your turn, yeah.
The municipal, I move municipal, I'm not with it at all today. Must be this lingering cold, I guess. I move the municipal council authorize funding from the operating reserve fund in the amount of $10,130 to cover the cost of cybersecurity insurance with a liability limit of $2 million.
I have a seconder. Councilor Longmire?
Sure. So this is a recommendation to authorize funding from the operating reserve fund. This wasn't originally put in the IT budget at the start of the fiscal year because, to be honest, based on the other municipalities that I've talked to, they didn't seem to be able to get it very easily. So this is a little bit of a surprise and a good surprise that we've been able to be offered coverage for this. The liability limit is $2 million, so it's a decent offer.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions or discussion? Councilor Hare?
I'll be honest, I'm a little bit on the fence about this. Just $2 million. I mean, I insure my car for $2 million worth of damages, and it's $600 a year. I know these are two very completely different things. But it just seems to be a high fee for what I would think to be a relatively low amount. So what would be our protections? What would be protected?
So it would cover the infrastructure that would be damaged by the ransomware. So if we were to have ransomware at this location, you would have to render all the computers infected useless. We'd have to be destroyed and purchase new ones. So that's going to be accounting for a lot of the costs. There's also going to be the cost to replace the server and sort of the more expensive infrastructure in the server room. On top of that, you're also going to be looking at the cost for staff time to get everything set up and going again. So even though it might not appear that it's one big vehicle, it's a lot of little vehicles that are around here that we have to cover for.
And so I guess my follow-up would be, because I'm not up to date with the cost of our infrastructure, where, if you can answer the question, where would our replacement bill be if said attack were to happen and we had to replace, let's say, a large percentage of our IT infrastructure? Would it be close to 2 million, over 2 million? well under 2 million? Just your best educated guess that you can come up with.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a ballpark to throw you. We went with a $2 million liability just because that's what we thought we would be close to reaching. I think Ms. Boaker would be more adept to answer the question about our assets on that.
Could I get an answer for that? Just, it does seem important.
Well, it does, but also, if I can just chime in, I'm assuming this also encompasses liability towards the general public.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So if they were hacked or
Yeah, so
it also encompasses that liability, not just replacement of assets.
Right.
Does that help answer your question?
That help, I guess that does make it more valuable, but it would still be nice to know where the $2 million figure come from.
Director of Finance, do you have that?
So the 2 million liability would really cover a lot of like intangibles as well, like the deputy warden just said. However, if we're talking about asset replacement, we spend about $50,000 on average a year for just regular replacement for life cycle. So, I mean, I have historical costs that I can give you, but that's kind of useless in terms of asset replacement. Laptops and everything, the price changes all the time, but if we take about $50,000 a year, and that might get us, I don't know, 5 to 10 workstations essentially, and we're significantly above that, so that's and that doesn't include servers or anything, that's just like basic.
Does that answer your...
Christian, it looked like you had something you were going to say.
I guess $2 million isn't a lot of money when you think about a cybersecurity hack.
Thank
If you
you.
look at what's going on around the province
Thank you.
right now. So if we have 65 or 70 computer systems at a couple $1,000s each, plus servers, you're going to do $200,000, $300,000 immediately without any work. The biggest part of this is going to be if somebody takes our data,
Yes.
we've got to find somebody to replace it. And so if we've got 25,000 tax records, or we've got 10,000 or 5,000 water accounts, or whatever the number is, I don't know what the number is, that's a lot of time and effort. You're going to hire consultants and outside people to do that. We don't have any insurance. We're on our own. And so a lot of that work will not take place without hiring external people to do that. And so $2 million is not a lot of money if you get hacked. If you think about what's going on right now with Nova Scotia Power, I'm sure they would love to have a $2 million bill.
Yeah.
And there have been other municipalities in the province who have had cyber issues and still do not have access to the data. It's very expensive to try to get your data back. And people don't pay ransom. So the insurance company isn't going to pay a ransom either to get our data back, so we have to go potentially manually reproduce all that data. And it's a massive job. So to Councillor Hare's point, $600 for your car insurance, that's for a car that might be worth a few $1,000s. We're talking about $10,000 to cover $2 million. You're not insuring a car for $2 million, you're insuring a car for a few $1,000s.
Not if you hit somebody, that's what you're paying insurance for.
Well, you're paying separate for
So,
that.
And again, I also acknowledge that they were two very vastly different things, but
Insurance is something you hope you never have to use.
Thank you.
But if we have to use it, $10,000 is a very small price to pay.
I guess I'll finish it off by, has there been, just for my knowledge, has there been any history of cyber attacks on the county?
Probably.
So we don't want to
I'll
go...
retract the question.
There's people fishing all the time. You can say that.
Right.
Yeah, it's a common occurrence everywhere.
No.
All right, Councillor Walsh.
Thanks, Chair. I want to appreciate this initiative. Thank you. It's a great proactive step towards resilience in the county. I do have a few questions. Bear with me, Ben. Do we know what specific risks are covered under this policy? From ransomware, data breach, business interruption, anything like that?
I don't have the answer right now, but I can get that to you.
Okay, thank you. Do we know if it includes preventative services or just post-incident response?
It would be post-incident response.
Post-incident response, okay. As a county, have we conducted any recent cyber risk assessments?
Yes. A year ago, in January 2024, we did a security audit with a company called Airdan Solutions. They went for a 3-day tour of our building. They conducted a report and produced a document for us which highlighted all the risks associated with our infrastructure, our mail servers, our domain controllers, and we're currently addressing any of the risks that they found in there. They said generally our service was good and all protections were up to date.
Okay, thank you. That answered my next question. Just another question though, beyond insurance, are we implementing or updating internal cyber protocols or staff training to coincide with this?
Yes, Carter's working on one right now, so he's going to be doing a sort of a presentation slash little mini course for staff to go on. I don't know if that's expanded to council yet, but that's something we are interested in providing. So there is learnings and teachings being developed for that.
Okay. No, that's great. Thank you so much, Ben. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor Longmire.
Thank you, and I don't have to ask anything because it has already been eloquently brought to us by our CAO, and I appreciate Councillor Welsh for his questions, so thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Austin.
Do you know the cost if we went to 5 million?
That offer was not made to us. We had an offer for 1 million, and we had an offer for 2 million.
For 2 million, okay. My feeling is, and I've been through one of these ransomwares at a former place of employment, they're horrific. They take a long time to recover and regroup from, and they're not cheap. So I'm just wondering if we can get a price for 5 million and do a comparison.
For sure.
Okay. And as far as the staff's cyber training, I don't know what the policy is here. Are staff able to access personal things on the work computers, or is that off limits?
We're working on a policy that might cover that. Okay. At the moment, yes. Any personal things can be accessed by staff. It's hard to draw a line on where personal things overlap with work things. But there is something in the works for...
Because I know the one that I experienced, that's how it came about, was staff accessing sites that they shouldn't have on their work equipment. Yeah, so that's it for me.
Thank you. Councillor Cranston.
Yeah, thank you for the work on this, and I do think it's probably important that we're looking into it. I have I guess my main question is, how many quotes and how many options have we looked at? Is this just based on the first bit of information, or is there gone for quotes?
So this was a request from Director of Finance, and it was a company called CFC, and they were providing cybersecurity insurance, so that's the most common, most reasonable one that we found. I don't believe we've looked into any other companies, but again, that's a question probably for Ms. Boyer.
Do I ask that now?
Director of Finance. We just have a question. Did this go to RFP, or was it sole source?
The RFP went out for our brokerage services and our insurance policy, so we get insurance through the provincial municipal insurance program. We pay membership for that, and that gets us essentially the quotes that we get as a municipality. So we went through our brokerage firm, which is actually BrokerLink. And that was the only response that we received to our RFP.
Okay. So essentially, it's a additional premium over and above our regular insurance policy, but with our current broker. Okay. That answers actually the rest of my questions.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Ben. So now to 73, 6.7, dangerous and unsightly premise report. So this isn't motion, it's just a report from staff. would like to ask the staff member to kind of give a brief overview, and then we can still ask some questions.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is my first report to the council, so to quote our deputy warden, please be gentle.
Not going to worry about me.
So the first thing you'll probably notice on this report is the change in the comments and status at the end of it. It's just changed to active and complete. And I'd like to be able to explain the reasoning behind that and the theory of why I've made those changes. So I remember a month ago when I was a guest sitting at the back and was introduced as the new manager of protective services, including DUPs, and there was a chuckle from amongst the room. Thank you for that. I've had a look at the processes that we were going through with the DUPs, and they needed an overhaul. I managed to look at some of the previous reports that had come through to the office, and the letters and orders that you may have seen under the comment section before for first warning letter, second order, the wording of those letters that had gone out to the residents was inconsistent with what's actually written in the NGA and our policy at the time. One of the other challenges that we had was, for a period of time, there was no administrator, so the bylaw officers had no power to effectively enforce any of those notices or orders that had gone out. Looking into some of the files, the record keeping and the actual evidence within those files, again, was inconsistent. Some of them had insufficient documentation or evidence in order to be able to move forward as a potential prosecution if that was the route we were going to take. There wasn't sufficient evidence that we would comfortably be able to do that. So the easiest thing that I came up with was effectively to just draw a line under everything for now and start with a new process. This is in the interest of fairness for the residents and so everybody can understand what the processes are clearly and simply. So that's one of the reasons why the comment section at the end has changed. They're now either active, whereby we're now working on them, or they're closed. The intention behind this is that our new policy stated that rather than monthly reports, we're now going to be doing reports to the committee of the whole quarterly. So my intention is there'll be a more detailed report in probably September, once we've had a chance to put these new processes in place. So for now, the idea is that we've started this process already. Each of the active files that we have will be revisited by bylaw officers. We'll look at what the complaint is, how it's worded, do a revisit of the location and take photos. And that's one of the things that's been consistently lacking in some of the files, not being able to refer to what the actual challenge was. So they will be going out, revisiting every active DUP that we have and taking photos. We'll then come back, review the photos that we've seen, review the initial complaint and see whether there has been significant improvement in order to be able to close that file, or whether we then need to move to the next stage, which will be the 30-day notice. Now, the plan behind that is there will be effectively a template of the 30-day notice, which will include relevant quotes from section 3 of the NGA, which is where the definitions of a dangerous or unsightly property is, and we haven't been including those previously. We have been referring the residents to, I think it's section XV 15, which describes the powers that we have, rather than the actual definition of what dangerous or unsightly is. So in order to be fair to the residents, we need to explain to them where they're falling down and also what they need to do specifically to improve that situation. That will be the first notice that will go out, 30-day notice. Now, my understanding is previously when these notices went out, the councillor for the area should have received a copy of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So ideally, if we have a new set of councillors come in, those documentations should have been handed over to you. My understanding is that probably hasn't happened. So again, in order to, there's a little smile over there.
That's correct.
So again, I've looked at some of the files, and those letters that should be in there that were sent to you aren't. We've had a changeover of the filing systems from physical to digital, so they're in two different places. Some of them again are inconsistent, so it's hard to backtrack to see exactly what has been done and what you've been informed of. So the easiest way for me to deal with this is, as I said, draw the line, come up with the new letters, and if it's required that we do start the process a whole, then you'll be getting a copy of that letter from now on. Once we've done those initial 30-day letters, hopefully there'll be compliance received with that. If not, then we will then potentially return to the property again and take a second set of photos to see what the improvement is or the deterioration. So it's starting to build our continuity of evidence and our chain of potentially a prosecution file. I'm hoping at that point, with the clear explanation of in the first notice of what's needed to be done, there's more chance of that happening, of the compliance at that stage. If it doesn't, again, the 30-day order can then be sent out, and again at that point the councillors will be advised of the next step in the file. Again, photos again, so we're able to compare effectively the before or after. That also gives us great evidence to say, here's the improvement. Like, this is what it looked like, this is what it looks like now. And does that now comply with the community standards? And we had a little discussion about what community standards were last time. The benefit of taking proper photos, at least at 2 points, it doesn't necessarily mean just the photo of that single property that's been complained about. We can also take street photos of the surrounding properties to do that community comparison. To say yes, it complies, or no, it's vastly different. If we then escalate to the 30-day order, again we'll be quoting the NGA and our new policy to say, this is where you have not complied with this part of the law, and this is what you need to do to comply with it. It has to be clear, so the residents understand exactly what is expected of them as why, and how they can achieve the compliance. To borrow a phrase from one of my previous employments, what we're hoping for is voluntary compliance, so people understand what they need to do and we can help them do that. The idea behind this is not to go all out and, great, 30 days is up, here's your ticket, start finding people. That's not the intention at all. But we need to clearly demonstrate our processes, the fact that the residents have been advised of it, that the councillors have been advised of it, and it's a very clear process for them to follow. We haven't had that as clearly as it could be in the past. So this is why it now says active or completed, because there's a whole new process that's coming in. We've also, thanks to Ben, acquired a digital camera from storage, so rather than just using snaps on the phones where the officers are going out there, we're now starting a proper filing system so we can take effectively evidential digital photos and file them properly within our system. I'm hoping that's already answered many of the questions that you had in the back of your minds. If there's any others. Oh, and one further point, sorry, I did mean to mention. As we covered last time on the information report that's shared to you, there's no names or addresses on that, and that's to respect everybody's privacy. However, if you have a specific question about a particular concern that you're worried about, or that you're getting repeat calls from your local residents about, I'm now living in Dawn's old office downstairs. Please come see me in person. We'll pull up the file and we can go through it in person together and review it one-on-one.
Thank you for the detailed report and the action you've taken so far in your position. So, any questions after that detailed breakdown of changes? Councillor Longmire.
Thank you. Thank you for this report. I love when we can clear up processes and make it simpler, more understandable. You know, the people in our districts need to know the information, the same information consistently, so this is amazing to see all of this today. The bottom of 73 of 112, if I could just have a housekeeping moment. That last one is not in District 5, and although it's completed, which is wonderful to see, if it could just reflect the right district.
I'm going to have to double check on some of these because we went through certainly a load of the active ones on our mapping system because there was a concern last time when we found one that wasn't in the accurate district. So I don't know if we've gone back and checked for the completed ones.
No worries.
But we'll certainly do that. Which one, sorry, what was the address on that one?
So it's the bottom of 73.
Highway 1 Upper Granville?
Highway 1 Upper Granville.
Nope, not mine.
4.
I'm glad it's completed.
I'm not Upper Granville.
So, I guess I just suggest councillors, that one's not, no, that might be.
It's okay.
Yeah, so that might be mine. So I would just suggest, based on that councillors kind of briefly go through, and if there's any updates or questions, just send them to the manager of Protective Services. So, any other questions? Yes, Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce, for the presentation. It's nice to see it all getting cleaned up. I just had a question. I noticed some of these aren't marked dangerous or unsightly. I was just wondering why that is.
Largely because there is a slight difference in the definitions between dangerous and unsightly. That you can potentially be both of one property. It's a historic chart to indicate whether we're looking particularly at the dangerous side of it, the unsightly side, or potentially both. And again, that's why it's important going forward that we have these definitions clear to the residents that we're talking to and explaining whereabouts their property may fall. Are we considering that it's dangerous? And if it is dangerous, that does give the administrator a little bit extra power to deal with it.
But as far as leaving it blank, that just means it's not been determined yet? Like the Highway 201 Lequille, it's active. Right on page 73, it's only right at the top there.
That's right. I've actually got that filled in pen here because that was an oversight after sent in we caught it beforehand. So that one is actually unsightly.
Okay. I just noticed a few through the paperwork that weren't marked, so I just wondered. Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. And like I say, if anybody does have any specific questions about a property in the district, please feel free to pop down and we can discuss them one-on-one.
Anything else? Anyone else? Cotw?
I asked a question yesterday, so I was bugging him yesterday. And I just want to make council aware of this because I've had several of my constituents would like for me to report the insight. And like was said, that we probably should stay arm's length away, and I'm going to go back to those constituents and say, if you want me to take a letter to the unsightly committee or the unsightly person, then I will do that for you. But they have to sign it.
That was an important point that we managed to clarify last night, that the DUP process is complaint driven. And part of one of the key factors in it is community standards, as we discussed last time. So that's why it's very important that we know who the complainant is, partly to confirm that they're actually from that community. We don't want somebody visiting from Saskatoon to come in and say, I'd like to complain about this property in Springfield. Well, okay, good, but you don't live here, you're not from the community, you're not aware of how this community operates. So it's important that we have that, particularly for our file creation and our evidence process as well, so we can show where the complaint came from, that it was related to that community, and the process that we've gone in dealing that. The challenge that we came up with, Councillor Connell there, is that because it has to be named person, that's something to be very mindful of if you as the councillors are putting your name on that report. Because it's coming then as you are the person complaining, which is potentially not what your residents want to hear. We're very happy for if they decide to call, email or write a letter and hand the letter to you for you to deliver it to us, absolutely, that's no problem. But it's important to know that as it's the complaint-driven process, we do need that name and address of the complainant.
Thank you. Councillor Cotw, anything else? Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we're supposed to have a presentation at 11, but I don't know if the individual is here. Oh, it's online. Oh, perfect. So I just want to direct people to section 2.1. We're just going to pause right now. So this is discussion of relicensing of Lequille and Paradise Hydro Systems. And I believe we have them on Zoom.
Yeah, morning everyone.
Okay, good morning, thank you. So I'm going to pass the floor over to you. So first maybe a brief introduction, and then you can move forward with your presentation.
Certainly. Are you seeing the opening slide, or are you seeing my presenter notes?
No, we're seeing the opening slide.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, so let's get started. So today's purpose is to discuss relicensing of Lequille and the Paradise Hydro Systems, both of which are in Annapolis County. And to share with you a bit about our field study results. So we would have conducted field studies on both these systems last year in preparation for our report this year. So I'll share those results with you. And then just to understand, and this is where the discussion comes into play with various different rights holders and stakeholders on systems, to understand if there's any fisheries issues of interest or any community concerns that you've had or know of in regards to Lequille or Paradise. So we'll talk about that. So I think you know where Paradise and Lequille are. They're within your county jurisdiction, so that's good. And even though I'm all the way in the other end of the province, that has been Paradise and Lequille. They're both beautiful systems, so we'll talk about that. Our relicensing program. So just a bit about our relicensing program. You might not have seen this previously, but all hydro systems in Nova Scotia operate under a water storage and withdrawal approval in accordance with the Environment Act, the Nova Scotia Environment Act, with the provincially regulated piece of legislation. Typically, those systems, we have 15 systems in Nova Scotia Power currently, and they are renewed on a 10-year cycle. And that means, because our systems are quite old in age, some of them, that they have been relicensed many times before. And so Lequille and Paradise, this is our 4th round of relicensing for these systems. Our reporting ensures compliance under the Environment Act, the approval that we get. We'll talk a bit about conditions there, but we report on our compliance under the Environment Act. And we ensure environmental sustainability of our systems, ensuring ecosystems long-term function, and also meeting the needs of Nova Scotians with electricity for generation and electricity generation, and also in a sustainable way. So green energy, renewable energy is an important function of our key overall matrix for electricity. It also ensures our relicensing program that key issues applicable to each system are considered, particularly changes that may have occurred in the previous 10 years. So because these systems have been relicensed a number of times, we're really looking at that last 10-year period. How did we do? Has anything changed on the system that we might want to highlight and or concerns that are brought forward, or anything else? And of course, we also make sure that all of our we consider regulatory, but we also consider NIGMA and community interest, stakeholder interest. So, talking with all different parties on the system. So happy to be here to get your thoughts on looking on here today. The goals and objectives for relicensing are to evaluate the impact of the operation and the ecosystem over the last 10 years. That's what we've been doing. And evaluating the changes that have happened over the course of the previous approval. And we do have that open dialogue with all of the NIGMA community on systems and relicensing, as well as stakeholders and any specific environmental concerns that we will need to address in the reporting. And then our stakeholders continued operation of our hydro systems and their generation of clean energy. So this is why we're here today, for licensing engagement. So letters were sent out to the CMT and also body representing NIGMA communities. They were sent to all 13 NIGMA communities, and they were sent to MLAs and councillors providing information on the hydro system and the relicensing process. As well, they included contact information to request information if they needed or face-to-face meetings. Just to let you know the outcome of those letters, I have received a few emails. Not specifically related to relicensing inquiries, but more communication, addresses, and things like that. So no specific concerns as of yet that have come to light. And then we also have met with the NIGMA and had a discussion with them about these systems as well. And no specific concerns, I think, have come out of that discussion either. Although those are ongoing, that's why I say not yet, but they're always ongoing. Relicensing, the report captures just a high-level discussion and areas of interest and concerns related to this engagement process. So anything we talk about here today will be captured in the report, very high level. Yeah, we have reached out to all property owners that border managed water bodies. And I will say the one email that I did receive was an address change, so that customer had changed their address in Nova Power, but I actually pulled the addresses from the property online layer for the province of Nova Scotia. So I don't have access to customer information, but what we did to reach all of those properties was we did a GIS cross-reference and took those addresses. So everyone that has property orders from managed water bodies would be collected. So the key considerations going into writing a report and for NSB basically to evaluate whether or not they should give us an approval to operate a hydro system for the next 10 years, includes water management, first and foremost. So our water levels, we have required water levels, max and min to maintain on the system. We have, in some cases, flow requirements as well, and operational and regulatory requirements, and we have a dam safety component as well. So what is our contingency planning around dam safety? There are fish and fish habitat questions. So there's a section on habitat and population, as well as heavy metal pollution, and we do mercury sampling of fish fishes. The water quality, stream water chemistry, reservoir profiles will be collected, and we're done so on these systems in 2024. And we also do a desktop species at risk exercise where we would evaluate any species at risk in the watershed in relation to aquatic and wetland species. And then the culture and heritage. So we look at our to resources as well, including any reporting that we may have generated over the last 10 years and the findings of those reports. So this is a picture of the Lequille Canal. Maybe you're familiar. This is their last Lequille hydro system. This is the 4th round of relicensing for Lequille. It began its operation in, I think, 1968, sorry. And it has one generating station, the Lequille generation station. One head-on, Lequille head-on. 2 storage reservoirs, Grand Lake and Darky Lake reservoir. And the generating capacity is, of the one unit there, is 12.5 megawatts. So an important piece for our renewable generation. I think I have a map here on the next slide. Thank you. I'll go up there. There we go. Yeah, so this is our overview of our Lequille hydro system. And so, as it stands now, the approval from the Department of Environment, has requirements that include a year-round maintenance flow and elevation requirements. So the elevation requirements for Lequille head pond are that we cannot go below 118.3 meters. And for Grand Lake Reservoir, the May 15th to September 15th, 124.4 meters cannot go below. And the later half of the year, September 15th to May 14th, 122.2 meters. The field program that we conducted in 2024 included setting traps for catching aquatic species. And so during that time, we would set 8 eel pots and 8 minnow traps. We deployed gill nets as well. And the species that we captured in the reservoirs were brown bullhead, creek chum, American eel, golden shiner, and pickleback. And we would have also collected water quality samples, 2 reservoir samples, so 2 reservoir samples in each reservoir, and 2 inflow and 2 outflow, 1 on each reservoir. We would have also gathered information on the profile of the reservoir, so things like the clarity of the water, oxygen profiles, pH, turbidity, that sort of stuff. And general chemistry was collected for the extreme water samples. So, moving on to the Paradise system. So again, fourth round for the Paradise system. It's been in operation since 1952. And it consists of one generating station, Paradise, one head pond, Saunders head pond, and 3 storage reservoirs, Clover, Dalhousie, and Paradise. It has just the 1 unit with a capacity of 5 megawatts. Gosh, I flew through that, didn't I? 1 second here. That's where I was. Regulatory framework. So for Paradise, the regulatory framework looks like this. Minimum elevation requirements on Saunders head pond is 184.7 meters, Paradise reservoir 212.3 meters, and Dalhousie reservoir 203.6 meters. So that means we cannot go below those levels without approaching the Nova Scotia Department of Environment for what we call a variance. So currently, those are our minimum. The minimum ecological maintenance flow for Bloody Creek from June 1st to October 31st, we are to supply 2 CFS, 2 cubic feet per second down that area. And then through the winter months, it's 9 CFS would be our requirement for ecological maintenance flow. Again, the field program for Paradise looks very similar to Lequille. It's 12 gill pots deployed, 12 minnow traps, 2 gill nets, and in this case, we actually did a beach seine deployment as well. The species captured were very similar: brown bullhead, yellow perch, American eel, and golden shiner. And we collected 3 reservoir samples, 3 in flow and 1 out flow per sample. So for water chemistry analysis, and looking at the profile again, oxygen, pH, turbidity, clarity of the water, that sort of thing. We were all set in situ. Finally, the Mi'kmaq culture and heritage is a very important stuff in the hydro sector and environmental services. We did look at the archaeological studies undertaken as part of capital upgrade projects. So anytime that we're doing a capital upgrade or a project, we are assessing the area prior for archaeological significance. And we do screening to delineate areas of high, moderate, and low potential. Areas of high and moderate potential are to be avoided if possible. And if avoidance is not possible, then we do a further archaeological investigation. So we do intrusive testing, and mitigation may be required. So we might do like a test hole program under the direction of our archaeologists. And Mi'kmaq, I should say. For reservoir drawdowns below normal operating levels, reconnaissance may be required to collect exposed artifacts. So that has happened in the past. Like I said, if we needed to go below our minimum requirement, we would obtain a variance from the province, and in consultation with the Bylaw, have potentially reconnaissance efforts as well. And the summary of the studies will be provided as part of the relicensing report. So I know for Lequille, we've done a couple of projects over the last 10 years, communication towers, work with the dam, and work with the tail race. Those reports will be summarized in the relicensing report. So for our next step, we continue engagement with the Mi'kmaq community groups always. So that this is important leading up to relicensing, but it's also important to keep the doors open and have that engagement at all times, really, with customers and folks who have an interest in the system. We report development underway. the report development is underway right now. So the report for Lequille is due September 1st, and the report for Paradise is due January 30th, 2026, actually. Typically, we do give 6 months review period, but for the Lequille and Paradise approval, it is only required, it's a requirement of the permit to give 90 days from 90 days prior to expiration. And then if all systems are go and everybody is happy with our submission for approval, then we would obtain a regulatory approval to go forward and operate our system. So, that is a little bit about relicensing. And I'm open to any questions you might have.
Perfect. All right, so let's open the floor for questions. So, Councillor Harding?
Yeah, hi, thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, perfect. I just had a question about the Lequille generating station. I know that you said in the relicensing report there'd be information on some of the work that's been done there. I live right there, so I noticed that there's been a lot of ongoing work on the canal and down at the site itself, at the generating site. So is the scope of that work going to be in the relicensing report, and that's something that we will see?
As regards to relicensing, a very high level capturing of any work that we've done, reiterating any permits that we would have obtained to do that work. But the province has assessed that scope of work typically and granted us approval to do it outside of relicensing. So specific project scopes are not necessarily included in the relicensing report, but high level, we've made upgrades to such and such an infrastructure would be included.
Okay. I just wonder if some of my residents had questions about what the work that was being done, it would be nice to just have a little bit of information about what upgrades were being done and why, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I can tell you for Lequille, I do actually, I suspected that somebody might have questions about this, so I do have a little, let me see if I can find it here. I had the scope of work. Now this gets me into various different things. So for Lequille, the upgrades that they're working on, and I mean, chime in if you have anything to add, Jen, because I noticed that you joined us, but the gate intake structure for Lequille Power Canal is being worked on. So we are carrying out construction activity for Lequille Power Canal. The gate intake structure, the tail raise gate, and the tail raise retaining structure. So various different upgrades are happening there. So for the canal embankment, they are raising the crest of that just slightly by adding rock fill to the downstream slope of the canal embankment and working to ensure that those gates are properly holding water when they need to be. I don't have anything else, I think, to share on that, but I could probably give you a little bit more information on that if you're interested in that specifically. I can take that back and rework this proposal and just give you sort of the work that we're working on.
Yeah, that'd be great. It's just, it's nice to have a little bit of information. I mean, it's very broad, but people do ask, hey, what's going on up there? They got trucks going back and forth, lots of rock coming in, moving around. So it is nice to have a little bit of information to share with the residents there, for sure. So, thank you.
Absolutely, I can see the interest. Yeah, people always want to know what's happening, what changes.
Thank you. Is anyone else? So before we move to I just have a quick question about, is there a certain contact that we can provide the general public if they have questions about any of these projects? Because we're not the subject matter experts. So if someone has a question about Lequille, is there a number that, or contact that Councillor Harding can provide them? Or do they just call the 1-800 number?
Yeah, we do actually have a system, our 1-800 number is set up to filter community concerns, customer concerns, and any, like, if you have access issues or water level concerns or you want more information on projects, that we call it our customer callback database. So customers can call in, and then that information gets sent to the appropriate superintendent, who would have operational first-hand knowledge of what was happening and be able to provide the customer with information. So I would suggest going through that channel, and then if the question is more of an environmental nature, then it would get directed to myself or somebody else in the environmental services team. It really is best, I know people want a cell phone number of the specific person, but to get it filtered through, it's best to use the 1-800 number, and then you'll get somebody.
Perfect, thank you. All right, Councillor Connell.
So you spoke today on the Lequille Paradise power source for Nova Scotia Power. So the Cotw Falls power permits aren't up too? Do they come different years or?
That is a good question. So Cotw is expired on February 1st, 2029. So the application for that wouldn't be being submitted until 2028. August, so I would say just start our field work in 27. So yeah, we have a few years to go on the Cotw one.
Very good. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Chair. This might be directed at Mr. McNeil. He might be able to help me with this, but is there a formal role that the municipality has in the relicensing program other than commenting? No, we're just here to...
Here, if there's any concerns council may have, then we would share them corporately with Nova Scotia Power.
Okay. This is directed at the presenter. Will updated environmental studies be shared with the municipality along with any planned ongoing upgrades or safety reviews?
So the relicensing report would include the environmental work that we've done, and it's submitted to the province. I'll have to take that back, I'm not sure. We haven't typically provided the relicensing report to the public, I don't believe, Heather, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. Is that something you would want to see?
Sorry, I missed the question. You provide the relicensing report to the council?
Yeah, the upgraded environmental studies along with any ongoing capital upgrades or safety reviews.
Yeah, I mean, to Erica's point, when we submit the relicensing report to the province, it's publicly available through FOIPOP. If that's a request, though, we can certainly send a copy of that relicensing report to the council. With respect to safety reports, that's not something, and Jen, feel free to jump in here. We would include some of that information, I believe, in the relicensing reports, but to Erica's point, if they're requested about a capital project, we can certainly provide information on the scope and information on those capital projects, for sure. So I think, Erica, you're going to follow up and provide some information on the Lequille Canal and the work there. Are there other specific capital projects that you're interested in?
No, not at this time. I think Bear River was just completed a couple of years ago. There was a big upgrade that happened there, but other than Lequille,
yes,
I'm not aware of any other.
Perfect. All right, thank you. Anyone else for questions?
Just dams don't last forever. And and Nova Scotia Power is obviously using to generate power and generate revenue. My question relates to the future. And so does Nova Scotia Power set aside a certain amount of that revenue every year for the future capital replacement, or to re-put the land and the waterway back to it was prior to the dam being in place? And I ask the questions on the basis that those that are receiving the service now should be contributing towards the future replacement or the future putting it back to the way it was originally, versus Nova Scotia Power going for a rate increase and asking future residents to pay for past work. So I'm wondering if part of the revenue that's generated now is put into a reserve for future replacement, or I guess reclamation, or replacing it and putting it back the way it was originally after the dam no longer exists.
That's a tough question.
Your question,
That's a good question.
okay, makes sense.
Yeah, no, I can take that one. Hi, folks. Sorry, I'll turn my camera on. You might let it load up. I've got the sun behind us. You can't see me anyway. Jennifer Goff, I'm the operations manager for the hydro power team at Nova Scotia Power. So that's a fair question, and it's something that we consider with all of our accounting practices internally. So Heather, that is something we're familiar with. But again, Erica, when you send an update on Lequille, I can provide you some commentary in that as well with how we do our cost recovery and retirements. But I will say, and I'm sure Heather, you'd echo this as well, the lifespan of those hydro assets, Cotw, Paradise, and Lequille, is long and strong. All the projects we're doing assume the continued operation of those sites. Everything we're doing, and especially civil works, as you know, have 30 to 50-year lifespan, so everything we're doing on those sites is for their continued operation at this time.
Yeah, I would just add to that, Jen, as Eric mentioned, these legacy hydro systems that Nova Scotia Power continues to operate are really an important part of 2030, 80% renewable, coal with province, off coal. The legacy hydro is a really important piece of that.
Anything else? Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Nova Scotia Power besides your own personal power bill question?
Bring that up.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to meet with us. And we look forward to reading the information that you're going to provide later on. And when do we expect?
Thanks for having us.
When would we expect to get that information?
I would say probably by the end of June. I'm going to need a couple of weeks, actually. I have a couple of pressing things, but I will certainly pull together that scope for Lequille, and like Jen said, she can add the costing and sort of our accounting practices information. I think that's everything that you would like me to provide, other than the relicensing report, which really won't be generated until the end of the summer, so it's due September 1st.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks all. Thank you.
All right. Perfect. So now we're going to go back to section 6 and page 81, 6.8, approve of bylaw 8 noise. We really need some dashes. 8 noise, 7 dogs.
No way.
Perfect, so Councillor Walsh, would you like to read this one too?
Emphasize the 8.
I'll do better this time.
Okay.
I move to recommend the municipal council give first reading to approve bylaw 8 noise.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Carson Salzman. All right, Ms. Campbell.
A lot of similarities in the updating of the noise bylaw with what we previously discussed in the dogs bylaw. First of all, removing the definitions that are redundant with the Municipal Government Act, formally stating the confidentiality practices, clarifying in section 7 the prima facie evidence rule, and I'm going to talk about that briefly in just a moment. Adding clearly that there is officer discretion for written warnings. Having that in the bylaw does make that bylaw and its enforcement more transparent to the people that are registering complaints. Adding clarity for assisting complainants to follow up with senior government when the noise they're complaining about relates to, for example, contracts and permits issued by senior government, and how they can contact senior government to register those complaints, because that is ultra vires the county. We cannot act on noise complaints under permits or regulations of senior government. And adding additional clarity for exempted operation of refrigeration trucks. In regard to the prima facie, it does state in the Municipal Government Act that prima facie may be used in court in giving evidence. If one person gives evidence in court that they are bothered, it can be assumed by the court that the entire community is bothered. However, the way the old bylaw was written, it made it sound as if a person complaining, it didn't matter about doing an investigation. As long as one person complained, the officer had to assume that the entire community was bothered. That is not warranted, nor is it appropriate. It was causing problems for the officer. Every circumstance of complaint has to be investigated to see if it's reasonable. Otherwise, a bylaw can just be used as a tool in a neighbor dispute.
Thank you. Any questions, concerns, or discussion? Councillor Hare?
I appreciate the change with 25 and 26 prima facie evidence. Where my concern lies is on page 91, I guess it'd be 28 PQR, the addition of the word reasonable. This just gives me cause for concern, because I could just see the argument being, well, it's not reasonable if somebody's complaining. And I know these people in forestry, fishing, agriculture. I'm more concerned with Q, but also in PNR, so I'm just going to kind of focus on Q. I know the folks in forestry and agricultural, and they rely on being able to do their livelihood and their activities in the mornings. And I think it was 7 o'clock is when quiet time ends. I don't then have to worry about potentially people complaining about earning their livelihood and potentially feeding extremists who may want to use this as a weapon.
So we got to be careful.
Yes. So I guess I'll start by asking, why was reasonable added?
Reasonable and probable grounds for any charge is a basic premise of law. So reasonable and probable grounds for an offense occurring is the result of an investigation and the judgment of a reasonable person, being the officer, as to whether a crime has, or a contravention of the bylaw has been committed. A lot of the complaints, I would say, that we receive probably don't meet the definition of reasonable. We have had significant circumstances where this bylaw has tried to be used as a weapon. I don't recall any circumstance where there wasn't understanding for people trying to reasonably carry out a livelihood that we in any way wanted to impede doing that.
So what you're saying sounds great, but it's just, it leaves this power in the wording that I know in the past we may have had not the best bylaw officers before.
Careful.
Careful. I'm speaking as my residents wish. Not everybody can fight a fine, a ticket. These guys in the woods, they can't afford to fight fine a ticket. They can't afford it, period. They can't afford the fuel in their machines. So to leave it wide open for the discretion of a bylaw officer to decide if it's reasonable or not, and it just seems to me, again, it comes down to if somebody complains, well, it's going to be said that, well, if they're complaining, it's not reasonable. So these people need to operate in the mornings. When folks in my district go to the woods, they go to the woods for sunrise, so they can avoid heat stroke instead of working later into the day. So I'm going to leave it at this, but I will say I will be reaching out to people in the forestry and the agricultural business and asking them what they think of this, because I don't want to feed potential weapon. I don't want these people to be able to get up in the mornings and be able to do their jobs without having it in the back of their mind, I'm going to have the county at my machine in the morning. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. So could I maybe make a suggestion? Would we be able to put some type of definition of reasonable in the policy, or is that that's beyond?
That's court.
The court decide that. I just wanted to throw it out there. All right. Perfect. Councilor Walsh. And
Thank you, Chair.
Frank.
Dawn, are there any distinctions between residential, commercial, and agricultural areas as far as enforcement goes?
I would have to say no in general. However, part of any investigation is the surroundings, and I would refer to things like community standard that we use for unsightly and dangerous. When we're going out to a complaint of, for example, let's say forestry or since that has been discussed, if it's in a very isolated area and there aren't any homes, for example, around, it's not in a tightly populated residential area, certainly you have to consider how reasonable it is to charge for noise at 5 to 7 in the morning compared to in the middle of a subdivision up at the east end.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to chainsaw their tree down at 4 o'clock in the morning in a subdivision that has 80 houses, that's certainly different than doing it in the middle of a quarter of a mile from the nearest home.
Yeah. I know there has been issues with some of the faller bunchers and the equipment running 24/7 that have to disturb residences, even a quarter mile away. So I think...
I would add, though, some of those are permits or regulated under senior government, and we do have a lot of issues with those. There's nothing we can do if it's under a permit from the senior government.
Is there a process for residents or groups to apply for noise exemptions when needed?
Yes.
There is?
Yes, there is. And that's a council exemption that's issued.
Okay. And is enforcement generally reactive only, or is there proactive monitoring in problem areas?
We do not do go out and look for contravention
I figured.
bylaw. So that's the general rule with all of our bylaws, is they're based on complaint. They're complaint driven. We don't go out to patrol looking for dogs at large. We don't patrol to look for noise issues. And really, these bylaws represent the wishes of the community. And so by it being complaint driven, we're serving the community in which we live rather than trying to persecute.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Councilor Cranton?
Yeah, thank you. I have two things on page 91. First, PQ&R, as Councilor Harris said. I'd like to see the word reasonable in there, other than I do have a similar concern that I was worried that it would open it up for interpretation, but your answers so far have assured me that it's more or less covering us. Terms that are caused by construction activity pursuant to a valid building permit. It's important to note that I lived in Cornwallis for many years, which is municipal owned streets. right on an intersection with sidewalks or crosswalks and whatnot that I believe would have been contracted by the county to paint. And I considered it reasonable to hear at 11 o'clock, midnight, 1 a.m., painting of the crosswalks, because that's when you have to do it, when they're not being there. But we need to be mindful that we're not creating something that could come back to bite us. The person that bought my house might not think it's so reasonable to be out there all hours of the night doing some of the municipal work that we've done. So just throwing caution out there, but I do support the change. And my second question would be item S. I was just curious as to why reasonable wasn't added to that particular one, because I would think that's more discretionary. And I would think, if you live near a trail and people are traveling and whatnot, that there should be an onus for that noise to be reasonable. I would think unreasonable use of trails would be something that is a valid complaint. So again, 2 a.m. burning up and down on buggies and stuff.
It certainly could be. I actually considered that because it's tied in with other statutory regulations, I had considered not putting it there because of that fact, but there's no reason it can't be. So certainly if it's council's wish to add it there, I would absolutely do so.
Okay, well, and my thought was maybe it was because you did reference it in accordance with the other acts, that maybe it was the other acts that covers the reasonable part.
So are you asking to put an amendment on the floor?
My question, I guess, was why wasn't it added, and she's answered it.
So you're fine?
I'm fine.
Thank you very much. All right. Councillor Connell, here for the second time.
So, I thought our previous one was at 6 a.m.
No. It might have been quite some time ago, but for several years it's been
7 a.m. is late for construction.
Yeah.
You take an asphalt plant, happen to fire up an hour before you would drop hot asphalt into the truck sitting there. And those trucks are going in that pit road at 4 in the morning to get in lineup. Some of them go earlier than that. Some of them may go there and sleep overnight. They want to get in 10 loads that day instead of 9. It's, so, I'm glad reasonable, because there's always going to be someone complaining. I live right beside the tracks. I don't care if a four-wheeler goes up at 3 in the morning, I hear it. It doesn't bother me. But I know that crucial things that need to be done timely, and like I say, asphalt plants, they're not going to start an asphalt plant up at 7 o'clock, because they're not going to get their first truck loaded until 8 or 8:30. Their day's done, So I'm glad reasonably's in there, because even though someone says, oh, they woke me up, well, you know what? Do you want your road paved, or do you want to run potholes? So it's, that's my concern. And the same as the forestry. And I know I've been here and we've had to deal with forestry. And some of the steps we took previously was, I know in Margarettsville, they were clear cutting. And we just asked them to keep their cutting at the back end of the property until after 11, so they could go 24 hours. And in courtesy, they did. So they stopped cutting out next to houses and go back to the woods. But the same thing is that those operations don't run on 9 to 5. You couldn't pay for their equipment if you ran on 9 to 5. They're 24-hour operations. And that's, we also, and again, reasonable. If it's one person complaining or if it's the neighborhood complaining. Because I hear what Jesse's saying, there's always those ones that complain about every little thing. And do I want to get woke up at 4 in the morning? Not every morning. But if a farmer's got to plow his fields or get his manure on before it rains, you know what? I'll put up with it doing it for a couple days, so that's reasonable.
It might be helpful if I add a little perspective of the kinds of calls we've historically gotten over, say, the past 5 years. We get almost no calls about that kind of a circumstance. We get almost no calls about forestry other than the permits issued by the province. Those are a problem every year. The majority of the calls that we get are about a loud party, loud noise from music being played, kids playing outside at the playground. They tend not to be business or industrial kinds of activities. It tends to be almost a neighbor dispute kind of circumstance.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Thank you, Councillor Cotw. Do we have something to add?
I do, if you don't mind, just to support what Dawn was saying. It was actually my suggestion that we added the word reasonable in there. And there's a couple of reasons behind that, as CEO mentioned. Reasonable is a phrase that's used quite often throughout law. And in answer to Councillor Hare's point, it will not be the decision of one bylaw officer as to whether it's reasonable or not. There's going to be a whole process to assess that reasonability of any complaint. It will come through myself, it will come through Dawn. It's not a one and done. One of the reasons that it's in there is because it allows us that little bit of flexibility and discretion, both on the side of the residents and of the operating businesses. So, for example, if we have a large forestry operation that needs to operate during those hours of daylight, early morning, that's reasonable for their operation. However, having 15 different logging trucks going behind a resident's house at 3 o'clock in the morning, is that reasonable? That's where that flexibility needs to come in. So without the word reasonable in there, it ties our hands very much to a black and white solution for a complaint. And I want to add that flexibility in there so we can deal with it on a case-by-case basis as necessary. But it's not going to be one person's decision as to the reasonability of it or not. It's a term that's used quite often throughout legislation, whether it be civil or criminal code. And the reasonability is how people from outside of that environment looking at this situation regard it, but they consider it, the lay person think that's a reasonable thing to do or not.
Perfect.
So it just gives us a little bit more leeway to deal with the individual situations rather than the black and white is this or is that. I hope that allays your question a little bit, but if you're happy to discuss it in more detail afterwards, we can make a few do so as well.
Perfect, thank you. Does anyone have anything for the first time? Yeah, Councillor Hare.
I guess a couple things. For one, it kind of, for them 3 points, it seems like it's been stated that it hasn't been an issue in the past. And if it hasn't been an issue, then I really don't want to create issues with this. And so, not to go too far into it, but I do want to, so if you look at R, reasonable noise caused by construction activity with a valid building permit, I just don't understand how this can be, I don't see how the word reasonable can at all coexist with that phrase. It's construction activity, it's noisy. You know, if they gotta have the boys up with the hammers at 6 a.m., which a lot of places do, you know, they can't tap on their nails softer and they can't run their equipment quieter, and they're also doing it in more densely populated areas, possibly. So I don't see how reasonable could be in there at all without implying they could shut down for 7 o'clock a construction activity.
So just to clarify, so the way the wording is now is the bylaw shall now apply to noise caused by construction activity to a building permit. So you got a building permit, you can make whatever noise you want, whatever hour of the day you want.
That's saying reasonable
Okay,
noise.
I'm saying the existing one.
Yes.
The proposed one is reasonable. So imagine a situation where somebody wants to come in and they're doing a construction of a house. There's no power, they set up a generator right here, right next to the bedroom window of the house next door at 4 in the morning and start doing construction. That's probably unreasonable. You want to go inside the house with the doors closed and pound a nail and pound a hammer, that's probably okay, depending on where you're at. But with the generator right next to that person's bedroom, who may have their window open in the summertime because it's hot, and run at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and there's nothing the bylaw would prohibit from that. That would be unreasonable. But this says now, is that reasonable to put that generator next to somebody's window at 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning while you want to go and do construction? That's where the bylaw officer and the staff have that ability to decide, is that reasonable or not reasonable, versus somebody who's inside the building at 4 or 5 in the morning pounding nails or screws or whatever, and the doors and the windows are closed. But somebody can hear it a little bit, no different, you can hear traffic going down the road, you can hear an ATV going down the road, then the bylaw officer, I would assume, would say that's not unreasonable, that's probably a pretty reasonable thing to do if they want to do it early in the morning. No different than if you're doing other types of construction, as somebody said before, if you're in the woods and you want to go at 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning and cut with your chainsaws, is it reasonable to start right next to somebody's house right there? Or do you do the 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning deeper in the woods and ask them to do it that way, so that becomes more reasonable away from the residential area versus during the day at 7 or 8 in the morning, it then becomes more reasonable to do things to people's houses. So without the reasonable in there, it's a wide open. Anybody can do anything they want, anytime they want, and then the complaints come into you as a council member. They're running their generator next to my window. I can't have my window open at 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning. Your response is going to be nothing I can do about it. And the public aren't going to like that answer. They're going to say that's not fair, it's not reasonable.
Yeah.
Anything else to add?
Well, it requires a lot of faith in our system, that's for sure. And I only see this creating, considering that it's been stated it's not a problem, I only see this as creating problems. Because yes, if we're not getting the situation where people are running generators by the windows now, it's going to be calls for, I hear him beating on the side of the house at 6 in the morning. And then it's going to be more investigations and more potential for somebody getting fined if not fighting. Or somebody's on a 20-acre woodlot, that the only woodlot they own, and the only time they can cut it, or they're trying to avoid heat stroke at the end of the day, and it is behind some houses, and 6 o'clock is the time they need to get out so they can get out of the woods before it's too hot. Those are the situations it's going to be creating that our staff are going to have to deal with, and potentially get fines that they cannot fight.
Anything else? Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions or discussions? No? All right, I'd like to call for the vote. All those in favor says yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no? All right. 6.9 on page 95, bylaw 9 repeal of C3 water supply program bylaw and C4 clean energy program bylaw. Can I have a volunteer? Councilor Longmire. It's all you.
I move to recommend that municipal council give first reading to bylaw 9, repeal of C3 water supply program bylaw and C4 clean energy program bylaw.
Perfect. Do we have a seconder? Councilor Walsh. Ms. Campbell again.
The key points are highlighted in discussion section on the second page of the report. This is pretty straightforward. These were short-term interim measures to address specific circumstances that were occurring in the day that they were enacted. These are not good long-term solutions for these types of financing. There are other options that are much better that are available.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions, concerns, or discussion? Councilor Walsh.
Just one. Are we considering or working on new framework to support clean energy or water upgrades in homes moving forward?
That will be based on your strategic plan.
Thank you.
Anyone else or any other questions? Okay. Call for vote. All those in favor? Yes?
Yes.
Opposed? No? What time? Yes, yeah.
12:02, and I find that this council has neglected our lunch break many, many times because we think we can get going, and then we don't get going, and it takes forever, and all of a sudden we're given 20 minutes or 25 minutes to run to get a hot dog.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, I was gonna bring it up too. So,
Food's coming.
we're having a eating session.
Food's coming, so you get food.
Okay, I didn't know,
It's a surprise.
I read that. But my point is that too many times lately, we've been scrambling to get back here from after our lunch break. And if we're not allowing enough time, then we gotta take something off the docket because
Oh, 100%.
it's happened too many times.
I agree. Thank you. So since we're still waiting for food. So, 6.10, page 103. Counselor Creighton, would you like to do that?
Doesn't have.
Oh, it's information, sorry. I got to think about dinner.
I would.
So, over to you, Director of Finance.
Okay, so a quick summary of this report. I was asked to kind of come up with some solutions, perhaps having an interim and a final billing due date. That just spreads out the tax burden for residents. They all come with a cost, of course, especially postage cost. That's relatively high. We do contract it out, so the printing and those services are contracted out at this time. So we came up with two options, just an interim billing and a final billing. So they get one bill and then another bill will come later. That ends up doubling the postage cost, which you can kind of see under the financial implications. Option two is we send out one bill and it has two deadlines, so it takes 50% due, say, June 30th and 50% say October 31st. So that keeps our postage down, but it does require an increase of supplies. We have to redesign the bills, that kind of thing. So the main conclusion is with our current software, we're looking at minimum $50,000 to revise the bill. That's based on the hourly cost and that it all has to be contracted out. SAP has to do the design for that. And that came from SAP themselves with how many hours they would need. And we have a third option here. We are right now considering the new financial software. We have done demos with the respondents to the RFP. And we are able to design a new bill as part of that implementation, no additional cost. We'd be building templates anyway. So it's kind of a good timing if council wishes to switch, that we do have that flexibility with that implementation, but it would be my opinion that we wait for that implementation to minimize the cost of it. Additionally, with the new software, we're looking at e-billing. With the threatening strike, we have pages and pages of emailed bills that we're doing manually one at a time right now. So I think e-billing is going to be great. It's not going to service everybody. Everybody doesn't have one, but I think it'll really reduce our postage costs. And then the ability to do two bills could be accommodated more easily.
Thank you very much.
Summary.
All right, questions? Councilor Creighton.
Okay. I basically support what the Director of Finance just said. So first I'll talk about the interim billing system. I support that for two reasons. A lot of municipalities around in the area do use that system. One of its main purposes, and one of my main purposes, is to help with the financial burden of receiving a tax bill all at the same time. It spreads it out, alleviates it a little. I do realize there are options for budget billing, paying it ahead and whatnot. But I want to point out that paying it ahead is paying it ahead. So somebody that's having trouble struggling just to get caught up with the bill is not going to be in a position to pay it ahead. So if they can get that hump, that's good. But this would be more in line with spreading the financial burden. The other aspect of interim billing is for the municipality itself. Currently, we put our bills out in May with the end of June. At that point, we are 3 months into our fiscal year, and we've started to outlay money. A lot of municipalities that adopted an interim billing system did it because they can put out an interim bill much earlier in the year, so they don't have to wait until June to put out their bill. They can put it out a lot of times the end of April. They base it off of 50% of the previous year's bill, whether, I don't know the exact calculation, but basically, if you haven't set your tax rate, you use the previous year's tax rate and take 50%. So it has a benefit because, yes, you're delaying half of your billing to later in the fall, but you're also getting the first half of your bill up to 2 months earlier. So in terms of the math, I'm glad it was included with the foregoing interest, but I would like to see some data on the benefits of getting half of your money 2 months earlier, because that has a financial positive benefit that offsets the other. So that 105, if you net it out, could be really $30,000. By the time you add, an extra $60,000 in savings by getting your first half of your money 2 months earlier. Getting back to the financial burden, no less than 2 hours ago, we discussed a poverty program, and as I said, I won't roll back, but I made the comment that our own taxation processes plays a role in that. So by incorporating something like this to ease financial burden, we are in fact playing a role in the earlier project that we committed ourselves to. So there's that. When to implement it, I think the best time would be with the implementation of new software, which I realize we may not be in a position to do at the moment, but I think that's the direction we should go. But I think it should be in conjunction with the implementation of new software. That's when it would be the most cost effective. And I'm glad the Director of Finance mentioned about the e-billing, because that was going to be my question, was are we incorporating e-billing into that? Because the $26,000 for printing and mailing would be a lot less. So I think we should go this route, but to do it next year would not be realistic. I think it should be at whatever point in time we implement the change in software.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Oxner?
I have a question. Have we had many residents requesting this?
Internally, I don't believe we've had a lot calling our department requesting it. We've been doing the single due date for quite some time now, so I think that's just what everybody's used to. But, yeah, not formally at the office.
That's your question.
Yes.
Agomar?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Actually, I'm directing this to Councilor Cranton. I just want a clarification on the interim billing timing. When we think of interim billing, we think 50% in June as it currently do, and maybe 50% halfway through the year. But what you were saying was it could be more in conjunction with the need for our funding, which could be maybe April, for instance. So it doesn't my question is, it doesn't necessarily have to be the 50-50. It could be like 70-30, if you follow what I mean. Like one billing could be due in June or whatever the initial date is, and the other could be maybe 3 months later or 7 months later. Well, it wouldn't be 7.
But I think we're getting ahead of ourselves, because it's just really an information section. But
it's important.
But I'll let, if you want to respond.
Yeah. So in my experience, both in former town of Bridgetown and what I've seen paying property tax bills in multiple locations, is the ones that use the interim system put their first bill out in April.
Right.
And the latter one is, in fairness, 6 months later, so
right.
Some are September, some are October. And the logic behind it was to, this municipality is good. I think we had our tax rate set prior to the end of the fiscal year. Some municipalities roll into the next year before they set it, so that's why it was only 50% based on the previous year's tax rate. But the whole point of me putting it out there was it has potential to save you interest from positive cash flow on the first half that you bill out if you bill it out sooner.
And just to finish, my second part was I tend to agree with interim billing as well, but also in terms of the new software package, I think it's important that we look at that first.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Taylor.
My 2 cents on it would be, I wouldn't see the benefit outweighing the negatives to interim billing if it's going to increase the tax burden on the residents themselves. I understand it might be hard to pay ahead, make that first payment to pay ahead. But in the end, even with interim billing, they're still going to be splitting their bill up. It would just be they'd have to take a proactive step to make that first payment, and then in the end, it would be essentially the same thing. And then it's not an increase in the tax burden on the resident, because at the end of the day, it's how much we tax them. So, my 2 cents.
Thank you. Anyone else? Perfect. All right. Thank you. I'm assuming you're going to tell us who's here. All right. So, 6.11, page 106. General operating line of credit. Do I have a volunteer?
I move that municipal council authorize a general boring resolution in the amount of $2 million with Royal Bank of Canada to meet current expenditures for the municipality of the county of Annapolis for the year ending March 31st, 2026.
Thank you. Seconder? Director?
All right, so this is sort of a new concept. It's not for cash flow purposes on your regular operations. We've kind of discussed that last time. We are in a net positive cash flow, no matter how we do bill. So that's great, but we've got a lot of larger capital projects coming up. And it's not always easy to just turn around and get a debenture. There's a whole process, which you'll see with the next report, where we have to get council authorization, minister approval, and go through the whole process. It's only offered at 2 times per year. So this is sort of just in the interim, so that we don't have any unfinanced capital at the end of the fiscal year, or we're typically going to be borrowing from, our reserves, which we're going to need for other projects as well. They're being allocated. So this is essentially just a request to have $2 million. If we use it, we pay the interest, and then when we debenture it, it pays off the principal. However, if we don't require it, we have sufficient cash flows, it's not all coming at us at once, then we won't use it at all.
Thank you. All right, questions, discussion? Wow. All right. All those in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Not in favor, no. No. All right. 6.12, temporary borrowing resolution, page 109. I have a volunteer. Might as well continue.
I move that municipal council authorize the submission of a temporary boring resolution, TBR, to the minister in the amount of up to $1,500,070, for capital financing.
Thank you. seconder. Councilor Walsh. Director again.
All right, and this is step one of the formal debenturing process. So we need a council resolution and our capital budget to go to the minister to request approval. From there, we're able to participate in the spring and fall offerings from the Finance and Treasury Board, formerly Municipal Finance Corporation, to secure debt for the items that we budgeted as debt financing. So it's over the next couple of years. I'm going to be out for a little bit, so I was trying to take a proactive approach so that we don't have to have an interim, trying to sort through this process. But the projects included are attached to the report here, including the administration building. We had some from last year that we are currently internally financing. It's working with cash flows, but we can debenture that shortly when we finish the project. And then we have the Bridgetown Sewage Lagoon and the West Paradise Public Works Facility on the docket as per the proposed and projected budget.
Thank you. Any questions for discussion? Councilor Walsh.
Just wondering if this will affect overall borrowing limit and debt servicing ratios.
That's a good question. We have a very low debt servicing ratio. The most recent FCI report I got was about 2.1%. Anything under 10% is low risk. So it'll increase it, but not by very much. With 1.5 million, it won't be very substantial.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. All those in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Against, no. Motion carries. All right, so I guess now we'll move into new business under section 7. 7.1, I believe there was a package that Councilor Connell provided to everybody. I just want to pass it over to you, Councilor.
Yes. Yeah, I gave you a package here. Off your desk. Anyway, I put a package on your desk from a public meeting that was arranged in East Dalhousie, and I just put it there for you guys to take away and read and get the info on. I'm just going to point out some of the issues that our community is facing in East Dalhousie. Under the East Dalhousie program that they gave out and demonstrated some of the risk and some of the things, I just want you to, they were very, very upset and unbelievable that our provincial government has moved so fast on such an off subject. So just March 26th, the memorial memorandum was lifted. May 14th, uranium added to critical minerals list. May 14th, request for proposals announced. June 11th, bidding concludes. June 12th, 26th, prospectors decided who's going to do it. July 7th, it'll be announced, and after July 11th, a 2-year license will be granted. That's how fast this is moving. As you go through the thing, you'll see a map, and it shows all the uranium deposits through Nova Scotia. And you can see it goes from Hants County right straight through to Digby County. One of the biggest issues will be is that if this goes through with no consultation with the public owner, with the public landowners, very little consultation to none with the municipalities, is it going to be in every one of our backyards before it ends? Because it goes straightly right down the South Mountain, all the way through to Digby County. That's some of the issues that they're having. The little separate page I gave you, the circle, that shows the drift from an open pit quarry, how much that'll cover with the wind currents and the water currents that we have in Nova Scotia. It will cover up to 400 kilometers. So the contamination of radioactive material could cover 400 kilometers, which will go down into Maine, big portion of New Brunswick, and all of Nova Scotia. The province has announced 3 sites. They've done very little consultation with the Mi'kmaq. They've done no consultation with the communities that are involved, no matter if it was Pictou, Hants County, or ourselves. So I gave you that package so you can read it over. There's been some good presenters at the meetings. A retired doctor on the issues of the health stuff, and so there's all kinds of info on the internet about this stuff. Pictou County put a motion. They put a couple motions on the floor, but Lunenburg County, and I feel myself, is that I would like the council to consider one motion. All these sites are in watersheds. The one in East Dalhousie will consist of all the lakes out through East Dalhousie, down through parts of Kings County, all down through parts of Lunenburg County, and the biggest portion of contaminants will end up in the Lahave River system, which will go out through to the coast, shore. In Pictou County, it'll all go up through to Windsor and go in the system there. In Pictou County, it's right along the shoreline. So it is an exploration of minerals that could cause a lot of damage to our county and our existing counties around us. A lot of times, if you're having health issues in your house, they'll ask you to do an uranium test. They'll ask you to do arsenic test in your wells and stuff, and radon. So these are the things that exist normally without disturbing anything in the soil. If this is brought to the surface, then it's going to go through our water systems, and like I say, a lot of them are the water systems that supply water and to not only our aquifer, but our wildlife and stuff like that. I understand through the meetings that there's only one uranium mine in Canada. It's 600 kilometers away from any community other than a small Inuit community in which they're not really paying much attention to. But it's 600 kilometers away from any community. The caribou that run in that area are solely highly toxic with radon and chemicals from the uranium that are not safe to eat. The fish are highly contaminated. So there are things that we're not 100% getting answers. No MLA has been to any meeting. No MP representation has been to any meeting. The only ones that are showing up is the councilors for the county, the counties that are involved. So I would like to put a motion that I would like to move that we write a formal request to the provincial government to pause before granting any leases for uranium exploration in our county, to allow time for the council and the communities to become informed and give good input about the potential impacts of uranium exploration in our communities. And I'd like that to be sent to Dave Bowlby, the MLA, Chris Dantemont, he's our MP, Tim Houston, and the Minister of Natural Resources. And that's not us taking sides, we just have had no communication. And these spots they picked in East Dalhousie, if anyone knows once you look at the maps and if you know the area, all of Nova Scotia, especially out through the top of the South Mountain, is nothing but lakes and waterways. And I've sat here for 22 years, going on 22 years, and all I've heard is how we build safe communities. How do we encourage tourism? How do we make it safe for our constituents? And this is one of the biggest things that could erupt all of that. So I would just like to see us send a motion, send a letter, saying to pause giving these RFPs out until we get more information and some consultation.
So, does anyone need the motion read again to second it?
No,
Because there was a
second it.
motion and then a discussion, so I just want to make sure everyone, okay, so do I have a seconder? Yeah, so we're talks.
Can I hear the motion again?
I would like to see the Annapolis County Council move that we write a formal request to the provincial government to pause before granting any leases for uranium exploration in our county, to allow time for council and communities to become informed and give input about the potential impacts of uranium exploration in our communities.
Perfect, thank you. All right, and Councilor Oxer seconded. So now we'll open the floor for discussion and questions, and let's try to stay on topic with it at our level if we can. All right. Oh, wow.
You're welcome.
Okay. Councilor Longmire, Dare, Walsh.
So thank you. This is, in my opinion, the right thing to do. I don't think we're clear on what processes the provincial government has in terms of what a consultation looks like. I don't think we know what that is. Certainly, I go back to February when a letter was sent out, and it was in the media that it had been sent out by John Lohr, and it had come out to 49 municipalities, and it was poorly answered to. It was all looking for support. And so if that letter represents or is considered consultation, then I have serious concerns because our health matters. Our province is small, it is congested. I don't think there is a place that the water won't be disturbed or the soil won't be disrupted to the degree in which we won't be able to feed ourselves. And if we're looking at poverty right now, as was presented in the earlier part of our package, then this is going to play another significant letdown for our province. If it is all about economics and making money, and we are typically the last people to find out that the citizens are, that the land has been disturbed and that it hasn't been remediated or put back adequately for safety. There are way too many questions. I think that's why the letter was poorly responded to, that less than what was expected in terms of support didn't show up because they didn't do consultation. But again, do we know what a consultation looks like? I don't. So this is a clear example that when it affects one's health and wellness, when it affects the soil that we typically would like to think we could grow our food in. When we think about water, water is an essential element of life, and without it, we will not survive. So that right there sums it up for me. I'm glad to see it on the agenda today. I'm glad to see a motion, and I am 100% in support of gathering more information. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Councilor Hare.
I go next after.
Oh, okay. Councilor Walsh.
I'd just like to echo Councillor Longmire's words. I totally support this motion. feels, without getting too much into detail, because the day's getting long, it feels like this is a trade for one thing when we lose everything. So I'll just leave it at that.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Hare?
Just before we start to involve ourselves in provincial matters, I most definitely would like to be, if I have to vote on things involving provincial matters such as this motion, I most definitely like to be well informed by everyone, not just those that oppose it, because we are just seeing those who oppose it here in these, which is good. It's part of it. But I do want to hear from everybody before making decisions on provincial matters, which I guess is part of the motion to pause. So.
Thank you. Concern is noted, but it has also been addressed that information hasn't been provided, so we don't know. We haven't had the other side provided.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, so, but that would be part of this letter to get that information. Thank you. Councillor Cranston?
I want to thank Councillor Connell for his words and drafting the motion, and I don't want to spend a lot of time, especially in provincial jurisdiction, but I have heard my district probably more on this issue than any other issue, and it is concerns, and it's not a squeaky wheel. It's valid concerns, and as Councillor Walsh said, trade for trade. So go specific. My district has a lot of forestry and farming communities, and essentially, I know myself, I will flat out say it, I won't support destruction of forestry and farming industries in support of another. As Councillor Connell pointed out, there hasn't been much research. The research proves that it's not safe. One of the things that was pointed out when I've read comments and various sources and all, and I'm not an environmental expert, but one of the key differences between Nova Scotia and other industries or other areas where this has been used is the fact that we're something like 45 minutes from the ocean anywhere in Nova Scotia.
Exactly.
It's not like that everywhere else in the country, so to be, to label us as, well, you want to be have-not, or blah, 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 I disagree with all of that stance. This isn't about, trying to critique the resource development. I support responsible resource development, and there's nothing that's been demonstrated so far that this would be responsible. And my thoughts on that, and again, I'm also echoing a lot of the concerns I've heard from the citizens of my district, is simply the province's bulldoze approach to this. That if you're already concerned about it, the approach they've taken doesn't help. But I guess to kind of sum it up, I stand with the forestry and farming industries and the current economic benefits in the way of life in Annapolis County, and I support this motion by Councillor Connell.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Eggenberg?
I'll be brief. There's a real good reason why we had a uranium exploration ban that was just dashed by this current government, so anyway, I support the whole proposal, and I laud Councillor Connell for bringing it to our attention in such a matter.
Thank you. Anyone else to round? Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Councillor Connell, for bringing this forward. It's going to be a huge issue for us. There was a moratorium in place for a reason. I'm sure there's been no amazing advances in mining uranium in the last several years. I believe this may be a play on the province's part to gain some more recognition, but it's not worth it at the expense of our citizens here in Nova Scotia.
Watch over the horn.
Yeah.
I'm done talking.
All right. Anyone else? Seeing no one else. All those in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Opposed. Did you?
I voted.
Okay.
I think you heard him vote.
Yeah. All right.
No?
Back to Mr. Connell again. 7.2, fire services recommendation.
So I'm going to put forward a recommendation that came out of the fire service meeting last night. I'll give you a little bit of background first. We received a letter from the province. The province is doing a provincial review of fire services. And one of the things that was stated in it was, I hope I still got it with me. No, I don't have it with me. Was one of the things they're going to do in the study was to make sure that firefighters are taken care of, training, and a lot of other stuff. We got that letter last week from fire services, or from the provincial government about the review. And then a letter came to fire services that they cut the funding to the fire school. So the fire school had to close. So right now, with cutting the funding to the fire school, they didn't give an option for our firefighters to seek training and approval. So fire services would like, the recommendation I'm going to bring forth is that I'd like to see council, I guess again, send a letter because of the aftermath of the province eliminating funding to the fire school. The municipal council approve a letter of support on behalf of fire services to the Minister of Energy Management, Kim Muslin, and to the Fire Marshal, Douglas McKenzie, emphasizing the importance of dependable and consistent training for our membership.
Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councilor Longmire? Perfect. Now, discussion. Anyone?
It's obvious.
Councilor Hart?
Yeah, just, I'm on that committee as well, and I think the main thing that I took away from the discussions we had last night was that these volunteer fire departments have, in some cases, paid already, and have, in multiple cases, students enrolled in courses that are now only half finished. So they're not, there's some discussion about how are they going to finish the courses. There's some discussion, maybe they'll ask to bring some instructors down this way so that they can finish their courses that they've started and get the certifications that they need for their level 1 and their vehicle extractions and all these important courses that they do. So, and I think it was also brought up that to go ahead and cut funding and to basically say we're putting a 6-month pause on training of new firefighters.
Exactly.
It isn't a good practice because, you know, these are volunteer firefighters and we need these people in our communities. And the more people that get trained, the more that are available to go out to calls, and the more people that are able to be involved in the fire service, it's a good thing. So putting a 6-month pause on this is it risks lowering the level of service that we have, which I don't think is a good idea. So I'm 100% in support of sending a letter to the province on this one.
Thank you for your comments. Councilor Hare, Councilor Longmire?
So, to those on the committee, did they give a reasoning?
No, they did give a reason, they're doing a review.
The review, yeah.
And how long will that review last?
Yeah, so it's currently a pause.
The funding was not given to the fire school.
Yeah.
So the fire school, which was the only school that our firefighters attend.
Civilian.
And like Councillor Harding said, quite a few of our own fire departments had students that had done several weeks training, paid for the courses ahead, and of course they're not refunding any of that funding. So now it's a cost that our fire departments hopefully have got some coverage from in-house training, but it's the fire marshal's office that gives out the certificate of final, because they administer the test at the end of it. So they're kind of looking, where are they supposed, or suggesting that firefighters get trained? Is there other options that they're not saying that there isn't there? So until we find out and just bring it to their attention that firefighters, if you're not gonna get trained, who's gonna volunteer, who knew who's gonna volunteer? Right? It's all, it covers everything in the volunteerism of fire departments, is that it's the ones they have that are trained, half-trained, that needs to be finished, but it's how do you encourage somebody new to come on when you say, well, you can flag for us, or you can, roll the house, and we get back to the fire hall. I mean, you gotta, there's an aspect of a commitment when people join the fire department.
Thank you. Do you have anything else to add? Councillor Longmire and Councillor Walsh.
Thank you. I think about, securing volunteers to become firefighters. And this shows zero confidence in a system that we rely on dearly. Look around at Manitoba right now. Where would we be if we couldn't supply people to go and help as people are burned down, as they're burned out of their communities, as firefighters can become injured? It's a serious matter to think that we would, or that they would see reasonable to pause such a fund, certainly with people halfway trained. And what does that do to the departments who have been struggling to secure numbers, right? Look around our province. Just back a few years ago, we had, Barrington on fire. We had Halifax. We need firefighters, and they're not all paid. These ones that go with the goodness of their heart and their souls to enter into something that can be so, difficult to maintain a regular paying job and go out on call day and night for hours, endless hours. It's an insult. I have to use that word. It's an insult to see a pause on something so important. I'm hoping that somehow that can get perhaps reversed. I don't know what it looks like, but we need to, at the least, provide a letter and scream loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you. You're going to wrap up, Councillor Walsh.
Try to. I just got a question for Councillor Cotw. The suspension, within the committee, do you understand why there was a suspension from the province with the fire?
It was no communication with the fire services or anything. It's just the funding was not granted. So due to the funding, $190,000 a year to the fire school, the fire school couldn't keep their paid staff on, so they had to lay off their staff and close.
Is that because they're doing a review because they're worried about the culture at the fire school or anything like that?
It probably has a lot in it, and how they're going to proceed through, because they had a very serious accident there a few years ago. But the importance of trained firefighters is becoming across the province, because Amherst is building a
live fire building.
a live fire building. Yarmouth is considering building a live fire unit. So the training is very necessity
It's
of
critical.
being a critical.
Absolutely critical. I was a firefighter for 8 years.
But
It's very critical.
It's just that it was sudden. And that's why fire departments got caught with some people half-trained, quarter-trained, and paid all the tuition up front and getting nothing back.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know personally, I have friends that are part of the groups that only get half training. All right, so, anyone else for questions? Perfect, all right. All those in favor, signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Perfect, motion carried. Guess lunch is still on its way, so can I have a motion to go in camera in accordance with section 22(2)E, contract negotiations of the Municipal Government Act, and in accordance with section 222F, litigation or potential litigation of the Municipal Government Act. We have a seconder? Counselor. Perfect. All in favor, signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Against? No?